this is Penn. Penn Jillette, Penn and Teller. Big guy does magic. Smaller guy next to me, he does magic too. He doesn't talk that much. Anyway, I wanted to welcome you to In Time. Welcome you all to In Time with Nick. Love you all. Peace. Go get him, Nick.
Hello, and welcome everyone to In Time. My name is Nicholas Lamar Soutter, and yes, I am realizing I like these shows. So this is our second one, just sort of ask a question. But what I'm learning is when I say questions answered and come talk to Nick, I hear with a resounding chorus, I would rather ask someone who knows what he's talking about. So we want to ask an authority when it comes to just about, well, anything. Anyways, thank you all for joining us, and so this is I'd like to try to do these once a month. I think they're a good maybe a Friday gig. I also want to start getting back into doing the after show, doing hangs. So if people don't ask me questions, I'm going to just end up talking about future plans for the show. We do have an exciting hang coming up, and it really depends now. We've got everybody on board except Mouty. Well, he's already on board. This was even his idea. But it's like he's great with ideas, but it's like showing up. We gotta try to work on him with this one. So we're gonna do a simulcast, us, Neil 604, and him. We're gonna do a hang. It's gonna be essentially an after show, and it's just gonna be shooting the shit. It's not gonna be big, real serious topics. But it's just gonna be we're gonna be inviting a few friends along, and we're just gonna sort of have a good hang and. Talk. I think the starting topic is the Zack Snyder cut really worth the extra time? That's a controversial statement. So that is ostensibly, I think, scheduled for this coming. Oh, we'll have to check. We don't have it because we gotta wait on Mouty, but we're on board. That's looking good. So we also have coming up tomorrow. I have been looking forward to this show, and we've already done a few bits on Daniel, and we had on Jim Majors to discuss prophecy. That was a spectacular show. But Floyd FP, about 2 years ago, I first bumped into him. Those of you who are interested in philosophy, he does a lot of these shows. He doesn't usually do lots of streams and go out there, so a lot of people haven't heard of him, but he really knows what he's talking about, and he's going to break down the book of Daniel for us. It is absolutely my opinion that the entire book is a forgery. It's a fraud right there in the Bible. Obviously, the biggest and best evidence that the Bible itself is it certainly can't be the Word of God, because at least one book in it is a complete forgery. So he's going to be here tomorrow, 1 p.m. Eastern. I hope you guys will join us for that. That's going to be an extended show. It's going to be a bit longer. He's got a presentation. Going to put it right into the interface and do our thing. I am really looking forward to that. We also have on, we're going back, I guess, to our anti-theistic rules. And, I'll get to that in a second. So we're going to have on Marianne Ono. She's going to be discussing post-theism and Christian atheism, which are some interesting concepts. But what happens when a non-theist or a non-believer says they're going to pray? What does that mean? Can they even pray? If you truly don't believe in any higher power of any kind, what does it mean to pray? Can you still say that you believe in Jesus, but without the God stuff? Are those inseparable? And what does it mean to people who genuinely try to say, I can actually worship Jesus and not believe in God? So we're gonna have a discussion about both post-theism and Christian atheism. Christian atheism being a subset of post-theism. Anthony Magnavasco is going to be on to discuss street epistemology, and that's going to be another fun one. We're going to have Maudy back on for that one. We're going to also have him explain why on earth he's getting his eyes blasted with vinegar. I wouldn't do it. I don't know. That was okay. But you know, I quit doing stuff like that in college. You know, you know, I don't. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to have a video of him eating a goldfish. But we're going to have him on, and I'm trying to get the name of the other person. One of my monitors is down. Of course, there's always something going on. So I've lost the name of. Actually, that means I've also lost access to my Discord. So we'll just have to. So we're not over-engineered in the slightest. Maybe the monitor is out. So let me just try. Those of you who've seen the back end, if you're a patron or if you're a supporter, we have a supporter channel on our Discord. You can see what I'm looking at, and it's monitor, laptop, iPad, the whole 9 yards. But oh, you know what? Bingo! There you go. All right, so I'll get that up, and then before so it's Anthony Magnavasco and Reed Nice Oneer are going to be coming on, and Maudy and I are going to host them, and we're going to have a chat with them about street epistemology. Now, street epistemology, I like the concept. You know, it was in philosophy. I like philosophy. I've practiced philosophy since, but it's an interesting idea, and it's a little controversial. It's not Westboro Baptist Church controversial. But so we're going to talk to them sort of about the history of street epistemology, where they'd like to go with what they're doing, because street epistemology was actually not started by Anthony Magnavasco, but he seems to have perfected it. And then ask them some questions about some of the difficulties. Are they just trying to make atheists, and so on and so forth? So please join us for that. We also have on the magic of Fred Rogers. Now, that's an interesting one, because in my view, that is almost quintessential in time. It's something that we all kind of sort of know about, but we want to take a good look at and try to maybe get people to understand a bit differently than they do. Fred Rogers was one of the more remarkable human beings in a generation. And yes, he was Mr. Rogers of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. But aside from being extraordinarily accomplished, and aside from being able to teach an entire generation with how to deal with some of the most profound life problems that we can deal with, anything from the death of a parent, the death of a friend, to divorce, to how to deal with bullies. And he, speaking before the U.S. Congress, and I've forgotten the name of the senator, but there was a senator who was dead set on making sure PBS would never come into existence. And Fred Rogers broke him. And the man just fell and wept on the Senate chamber floor. So I think that's another one I'm looking forward to. So we're going to have an interesting discussion on Fred Rogers, and a couple of other things coming up. Meanwhile, this is a call-in show. We haven't done these in a while either. The last time we did this, we had a producer and someone who had done this for non sequitur more than once, a lot more than once. So they knew what they were doing. I'm going to do my usual and sort of wing it by the seat of my pants. But the call number is 769-2 in time. 769-2 in time. 769-246-8462, and I will check on the status of the call center in just a minute. But that is the call-in number, and you'll be calling into the show. And we actually promised that to. We have a number of people. We have Xandering, Dorito, truckers who can call but can't necessarily use any other means. So hopefully that will make it a little easier for them to call in, ask a question. Please, if you know who Nate Dogg is, give him a hard time, because he was just like, I'd love to do a call-in show with you, Nick. And here we are. That window is empty. He didn't show up. That's all right. Probably just be giving me a hard time. So, and in terms of, I'm going to go check the live chat, because if I'm going to be answering your questions, I kind of need to be seeing what's going on in the live chat. I will say we also did a show. We did a show on Hume's problem of induction, which I really enjoyed, and I think people liked it, and we got some very good feedback on it. And one of the things that actually kind of inspired that was some of the discussions that I've been having in some of the other live chats. We're also going to be doing a nick of time on lying, because lying is a concept that is either profoundly misunderstood in my view, or is just, I mean the sort of, okay, so quick question. If you say something that's true, but you think it's a lie, is that a lie? If you think you've given someone poison because you're trying to murder them, and it turns out that you just gave them milk, and they say, hey, is this safe? And you say, sure, well, you're actually telling the truth. Or is it lying? So we're going to talk about white lies. When is it okay to lie? Are all lies necessarily immoral? So we'll do a nick of time on lying, because that's just an interesting topic. And if you're on Twitter, everybody's calling everybody a liar. And I'm just like, okay, it's time we settle how we know when someone's lying, which is basically almost never, because it's actually a state of mind. But at any rate, we'll get into that. So let me catch up with what's going on in the do you like turtles? And already, let's see. So the solipsism runs deep with this crowd. I'm starting a solipsist group in my area. Yeah, I will not do the solipsist joke, because I've done that one too many times already in the last 3 or 4 days. I've been going around from to a lot of different shows. I've been spending a lot of time with Neil, which has been a lot of fun. And I don't know, just going on to some shows that I haven't. And then let's see, Nick went up against Hovind. I have huge problems with no death before the. Well, that Hovind debate was, so the Hovind debate was from actually about 2 years ago. But and first of all, it was interesting because I haven't seen that in a while, and so unfortunately, I have a nerve condition, causes a good deal of pain. And much of the time it's managed. Sometimes it's not. I'm always in pain. One reason I have a headset that is mobile, and I can go 300 yards from this stream and keep talking, is because sometimes I have to walk. The pain just gets too bad. I turn off the camera. In fact, that's one reason why we have the the shutters there. I turn off the camera so that the guest doesn't realize, because it's a little rude to just sort of get up and walk out. And I did that with Ocean once. I was on Hammered Out with Cirrus and Ocean. And, I'm so used to the fact that I can just get up and walk, and I can hear and keep talking and everything. And I just get up and walk away, while Ocean was right in the middle of it. He's just like, and so, Nick, you see, I think the problem with the episteme, and he's gone. It's like, no, I'm not. He's like, okay. And so, but the pain also means that my patience levels are not what they used to be. So I was watching that debate with Hovind. I was like, I remember having that level, because that took some patience. But, yes, Sinister Porpoise, you can perform the act of prayer. Yeah, I think at a minimum agree the act of prayer, but does prayer necessarily? I'm looking forward to that discussion. Marianne Ono, I've known her for probably going on 5 years, and I have never known her not to cause controversy. And I've seen her cause controversy that almost resulted in like jail time for multiple people involved on all sides. She's, for somebody who is in fact what she self-identifies as a Christian atheist, and certainly as a post-theist. So she's heavy in a church. She has what you would call religious practices and does not believe in a higher power. So, and this isn't, I mean, this is sort of a growing movement anyway. It might be, I'm curious if this is what we're talking about. It's sort of the next step, sort of maybe an intermediary step in between theists and atheists. But she's a delightful human being. She's an extremist, actually. She's an extremist, but she's an extremist for compassion, understanding. And if you don't think that those can be weaponized, I shouldn't say weaponized, but I mean, put to the extreme, where it's like, she'll have compassion for anyone, including people that, might otherwise be shunned in society. She's an extraordinarily interesting human being. Delighted to have her on. So, let's see. I'm going to catch up on some of the live chat. And then, yes, I blackmailed. If you saw that Penn and Teller bit, Teller wasn't really there. I had him, and I said I'd release him if they did the thing. Sounds like an oxymoron. Yeah, I got into that fight on Twitter actually, but there are people who argue that I want to say Thomas Paine. It's not Tom Jefferson was in fact a Christian atheist. Now, he clearly believed in the Christian values, and he used Christianity as a means to those values. But he rebuilt the Bible without any of the miracles. There's a Jefferson Bible. You can go to most bookstores have the Jefferson Bible. All the miracles have been removed. That's Jefferson's work. And people who sit there and say that the founding fathers all believed in Jesus. Thomas Paine said that you should distrust anybody who says that there are gods and knows. I'll try to remember the quote. I'll remember the quote probably in a few minutes. But no, most of them were at a minimum deists. And Jefferson is usually thought of as a deist, but the reality is, it appears he didn't believe in any kind of higher power, but he did believe in those values, and he was perfectly happy, and it seemed natural to him to espouse Christian values, sort of the ideal of Christian values, let's say, enough that, again, he rewrote the Bible. So I've seen arguments that he was a Christian atheist. And at a minimum, I think deist is probably more appropriate, but I think it's worth discussing. So, moving on, Linux admins aren't expected to. You should read something into Marisol. Okay, yeah, I don't know. So our first troll of the evening, right there. Just saying. And I should check. It doesn't actually ding me when there's a caller. We don't have, no. Okay, well, there you go. So the number again, 769-2 in time. 769, the number 2 and in time, if you want to give us a call. Because we haven't done this in a very, very long time. So, but I'm looking forward to, I want to do some more of the Hangouts. And I've been joining Amy Newman's Hangouts. And I have really had a lot of fun in those. I met a lot of really great people in those, so I've been enjoying that. And of course, some of those people have been guests on our show since then. So we've had on actually all of Tank. Well, Pasta Mike blew us off, so there's no accounting for it. But we had on Oz twice, and his story, especially the second time, was I thought absolutely remarkable. Your heart breaks for Oz and what he went through, and I am genuinely impressed. I think I've had this discussion before. In particular, take a look at where we are with homosexuality in this society. It is light years from where we were 100 years ago, where you could kill a homosexual without any real consequences, and we're not obviously where we need to be. Just this huge amount of progress made, and it can be hard to tell because it is really fucking slow. It's too slow for anything that one could call justice, but it happens. It's what Martin Luther King Jr. called the slow arc of progress. But it only happens because of people who are in the public eye, who are respected and who are influencers, who come out and say, I'm gay. And they're the ones who are the trailblazers. They're the ones who suffer the consequences. And without them, things don't get better. And I think the people who've suffered at the hands of religion, people who struggle with mental illness, people who've struggled with things that we don't like to talk about and that we shame, and come out and say, hey, I'm successful, I'm a good human being, but I went through this, just like a whole bunch of really good. And I think Oz seems to take to heart the idea that he can help people by being honest with his struggles, and I think it's kind of a beautiful thing to see. And I just like hanging with the guy. He's got a really great sense of humor. He's a sweetheart. Anyways, but when you see what he went through, it's just sort of like. Anyway, so we've also had on Randolph a few times, and look forward to having him on, I think, again in the future. So between going on to Neil, and we had Neil back, but I've been enjoying going on to Neil's too. Neil's is all of these shows are very different. I think they're going to also inform what we do just a little bit. I'm I'm glad to be having Neil on for this hang that we're going to be doing in the future. All right, so who wants me to call in and ask him? Not me. No, please don't. By the way, calls for land mammals are free, at least if you're a carrier. It's up to your carrier, but we know that this is not a 1-900 number. Calls for aquatic mammals, $60 a minute. Just saying, porpoise. All right. So let me. And actually, well, porpoise is hosting the show, depending on which solipsist you speak with. Super chat. Oh wow, a $20 super chat from Maynard Saves, and of course it just went right off my screen. So give me a second. I do appreciate that. And that'll lead me into my next little show here. $20 from Maynard Saves. Hey, Hovind holds no death before the fall of man. What did sharks megalodon eat? Oh, that's a really good question. That took me a second. Okay, so if there was no death before the fall of man, but we had dinosaurs, which at least according to Dr. Dino, oh dear Lord. And what did they eat? That's a good question. My suspicion is he's going to say, and I got into an argument about him with somebody on another Discord, and the short answer to this, I mean, he'd have an answer. My guess is they were actually herbivores, and then, fall of man, God said, let them eat man. I don't know, something to that effect. No, that's a good question. I hadn't thought of that. I will say, I think he's faking. And I've had this discussion with a number of people. And I think Aaron first told me that he thought that Hovind was a fraud. Now, of course, he's committed tax evasion, and he sort of finds ways within his beliefs or his purported beliefs to justify them. But any fraud would do that anyway. He's at a minimum a fraud in terms of the taxes, and so the question is he a fraud in terms of his own beliefs? I suspect he is, and I have been called unreasonably reasonable myself more than once. It's a moniker that's hung around me in high school, certainly hangs around me on Twitter from a number of people, and most of the people who know me will tell you I can be a frustrating friend to have because I tend to assume the best in everybody until until I have no other choice, really. And it's admitted, I understand why it's frustrating to my friends, and I should probably pull back on that some myself, but nonetheless, with Hovind, I really, as long as I could, held out the idea that he really believes what he's saying. I don't believe that anymore. And I stopped believing that right before the debate when I was looking into all the research and everything that he was doing. And I said, he's actually a smart guy, and he's reasonably clever. He knows how to construct these arguments. And all of his arguments look to me to be constructed artificially. Designed, even really constructed far more for his followers than for people like me. But the way he talks, the way he asks questions, there's all sorts of, in my mind, giveaways that he actually doesn't believe it. So if I had to bet, I would say he thinks that, the earth is, we evolved, he thinks all the standard, but he makes a very good living at saying that he doesn't believe these things. So that's my view on Hovind. I'd be hard pressed to change that. But thank you very much, Maynard Sages, for your super chat, which does bring me to another topic really quickly, which, just to let you guys know, and I think you guys know this, in time, I'm very proud of this show, and undergone a lot of changes, as everybody knows, and but the core and the central brand has always stayed the same, which is delivering good content and delivering adult content. Now, not like Pornhub or the other one, which people tell me that when I tell jokes, I should know, so that, like, many fans, I think it is, want to say, I don't know, because I'm gonna give myself away as a boomer, but nonetheless, we do serious shows, and when we're doing breaking news, and I forget, we've had at least 3 people killed on our air live. It's not, we don't show, but if we're during the last summer, during the riots, we showed 6 live streams from 6 cities. And in fact, one of the ones that we saw was moments after we actually saw the running away of that guy who I forget. I think he came in from, I forget whether he came from Indiana, but he was out of town. He's now, it was a car dealership, and there was a black guy there, and he just said, "Oh, I'm killing him for, the revolution." And it was just some kid committed murder. And we've seen these things, and we've watched footage of a plane getting shot down out of the sky, and sat down and tried to figure out what this means for our relationship with countries in the Middle East, which are just extraordinarily difficult and complex relationships. And what we do is we do 2 things, really, which is we bring you the facts to the best of our ability to discern what those are. And then we give you opinion. Sometimes it's my opinion. I'm reasonably well educated in these areas, not an expert, but I usually have I have a broad breadth of knowledge that I can at least apply to start some context. And then we try to bring on experts, historians, politicians, whoever we have that we can get to talk to you guys and talk about these things. We get demonetized every other video, at least every other video. And we have had discussions with guests who come on and they say, "Well, I won't do this and this because I don't want you to get demonetized." And we're like, "No, that doesn't figure into our calculations. It doesn't. It just doesn't." Maudi's first time here, he started jamming with his guitar. And then he was about to play a riff. He says, "Ooh, I can't do that. You'll get demonetized." It's like, don't change what you're going to do for whether or not we get demonetized. We get our support from any number of ways. One easy way. Like and subscribe. Hit the like and subscribe button right now. And that helps us in the algorithm. That helps other people learn who we are. And by word of mouth, by people who sit there and say, "Hey, I saw the show. I really like the show." They go out and they tell people. That's one way. Patrons. Join, become a patron. We've got a lot of patron rewards. We took a lot of time to sit and think about these rewards, and I think they're good rewards. But you also get access to the patron level of the Discord and the Hang, and you get to see stuff before we do it. You get to talk to me every month. We do a patron Hang, and we figure out what we're going to do. I'm going to be on our Discord anyway, so come on down there on that. But those are ways to support us, because we're not going to get we're going to get demonetized. And that's just, we decided on day one, really, of this show, that we are not interested in doing this show if the monetization on the episode level was ever going to be a factor in content. And it's not. It's not. I don't like losing the monetization. I don't. But we do not allow it to drive content. So if you are here and you want to support us, these are great ways. But thank you very much for that super chat. And I've taken that as the opportunity to opine on that for just a minute. So thank you very much. Let me get on to sort of the next, took 2 hours to cover basic logic functions that you cover in, yeah, there's, all right, I have a sneaking suspicion they're talking about a guy I used to know. So, all right, perfect. And we got a $2 super chat from the Sinister Porpoise. Hovind, like Trump, manipulated the poorly educated. I think that's very true. Somebody had asked this, and I saw Biddy in the live chat. I don't think she was the one who asked, but somebody had asked, and I was on the Tang chat at a while back. Way to keep it light, Nick. Thanks, Titan. Oh, well, if you guys aren't going to be asking me questions like, base grade or less filling, then I gotta do this. What can I say? So, somebody had been asking about why is it that human beings focus on these beliefs so much and then get so entrenched and refuse to accept any evidence, no matter how much. And there's all sorts of things that we've all heard of. The backfire effect is obviously a common one. It's a very interesting one to understand and see how that works. Metaphysical certainty is another one. But tied to metaphysical certainty is something called the Tinkerbell effect. Now, the Tinkerbell effect is really interesting. And I had this as a kid. Everybody has this, which is this sense that you can actually believe something enough to commit it to reality, to make it real, just through the act of believing. Now, as a kid, you see kids like this all the time. If a kid gets caught doing something wrong, the kid might just sit there and you can see in their mind, they're just saying, like, no, 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 no. And they're trying to, like, undo it just by sheer force of will. Somebody had said earlier, I think I was talking about, did you ever experiment with religion? No, but I tried to be like telekinetic, as a kid. I was just like, if I concentrate really, really hard. and this thought that if I believe strongly enough, and then that is an instinct that, you know, when people take LSD, they sit there and they say, oh, you know, I really can do that. And if I truly commit to the fact that I can fly, no hesitation, I'll be able to fly. Well, the easiest way to do that is just jump off a building. So the Tinkerbell effect is a spectacular. And now as you get older, we lose some of these things, but we don't ever truly lose it. And there is this, we have this belief that we can unmake reality with a thought. And it's really interesting. You can make or unmake reality with a thought. And so when people think, like, there are people who like don't want to jinx something good by thinking about it, because, well, gee, if I think about it, I might undo it somehow. It's a spectacular, it's a really bizarre thing. So that's the Tinkerbell effect. I don't know that we're going to do a show on it, although it would be nice to do a show on some of the more interesting psychological phenomenon. The Tinkerbell effect is certainly one of them. That's named after Tinkerbell, of course, Peter Pan, who, if I recall, only existed so long as people believed in her. And that's certainly, I guess, the sort of fairy lore. So, yeah, Trump. It was so sad to see Trump going after the coal miners and sort of suggesting that, oh, you can all get your jobs back and everything will you know, be back to normal and be back the way it was. And sort of like, it's not going to. It's not going to. The nature of the universe has changed. Things are always changing. And I'm not a huge fan of that any more than the next guy. But you can't think it the other way. And if you accept that and are willing to work with it, you can make the most of that. And you can try to find ways to change that are beneficial to you, your family, and your communities. But one of them isn't holding on for dear life to something that is gone. And coal mining is not coming back. It's not coming back for a large number of reasons, most of them very good. So let's see here. Oh, and Xander, Nick Soutter, you look bigger in person. Hey, I've never actually gotten that yet. I thought you'd be bigger. Yeah, Xander. So I got to meet and hang with Xandering for a little while, which was a lot of fun. So you looked exactly like what I thought you would look like. How many times have I seen you on stream as Xandering? So Xandering, been on a lot. Xandering, did a gun debate, and Xandering is one of the few conservatives I've ever met who I think is really, he's a conservative in really sort of the classical sense. And I think, you know, he's conservative, sort of, at least financially, economically. And I think he's conservative in his interpretation of the Constitution. I think socially, he's as liberal as anyone I know, and genuinely a good guy. But I remember discussing guns with him just sort of casually, and I think it was after my gun rant. So I did two rants. I did the Trump rant. Nobody looks at me the same after hearing the Trump rant. I go off on Trump a little bit. It's a performance piece. You'll have to give. Then the gun rant, and then he wanted to discuss guns with me, and we spoke about him. And he was one of the first ones who said things in a way that I really genuinely believed in the integrity of the position that he was putting forth. It wasn't something it wasn't even to convince me. He obviously wanted to convince me because he you know, wants more people to align with his views. But what I was hearing was really the essence of his thoughts on why guns should be allowed, should be permissible, very much in the one of the more liberal senses of the Second Amendment. And I like where I think we ended up, which was really reaching the conclusion, mine, that if you try hard enough, and if we really banned guns and we tried hard enough, we could really get rid of all guns for most intents and purposes. I think they succeeded in Australia, so on and so forth. And I think his view is, nope, you can't. There are going to be people who are going to bury them in the backyard. There's going to be people who still have them, and as long as you can't take away my gun and my right to defend myself, with which I would actually concur. So it turned out I think we both sort of reached the conclusion, if he's right, and you can't get rid of the guns, I would take his positions. And I would be pro Second Amendment in the exact same way that he is. So, and I think without putting words in his mouth, I think he sort of reached the conclusion that if we really could get rid of the guns in the most idealistic sense, which I think is hard but possible, if that could really happen, he'd be on board with my position. So we actually have identical views. it's just the starting assumption of what's really practical, what can be done. And if what I'm right can be done, he'd be on my side. And if it can't be, I would easily be on his. So that was a pleasant. We still have that one up, but we have him on every now and then. And he's a good guy. So thank you very much. Yeah, and then we got to meet. He was in the area. We went out. We did lunch. We had a lot of fun. I enjoyed that. So thank you. Is there an actual call-in number? Yeah, it's a call-in number. So. We can also actually hook up to Skype. We can hook up to either Discord or Skype. Right now, the call-in number is 1-769-2-IN-TIME. It's an actual call-in number. You'll be asked to just give a brief synopsis of who you are and why you're calling. It comes up on my screen here, and I can let you in theory. Like I said, last time I did this, Boole was here, and Boole had set it up. So that was probably at least a year ago. So that's 769-246-8462. In fact, actually, I think that was the day John Peterson called in. I hadn't spoken to him in forever, and he decided to call in, and that was the... So, yeah, I'd like to be able to do the call-in shows a bit more. So, yeah, it is. Questions are 10 away. Yeah. Yeah, this is a Q&A. I'm sorry if I'm not. Yeah, I'm. What's the number to ask a question? Yeah, so I gave the number, and if that doesn't work, like I said, we haven't done the call-ins in over a year, and we had a producer who had done it a lot. He had done it for the Non Sequitur show. He had call-in every day, and he showed me how to do this. But we've kind of gone in another direction. I haven't done it in a while, but that's the number. So if that number isn't working now, I right now. This says that we're live and nobody's called in. I suppose actually I could try calling in myself just to see if it works. But right now we are just waiting. Now, unless now I suppose it is possible. Let's see. Now, if anyone's called and for whatever reason it hasn't come up, let me know and I'll see if I can deal with it. But this says it says the call center is live, so you can call that number. And yeah, yeah. I think talking about Boole is difficult because I think there's a lot of people who are upset about other things that 90% of which have nothing to do with him. I think you could call in. The phone number is actually coming in through Skype, so I don't know what happens if another Skype call comes in, except maybe I merge the two. My hope is it doesn't lose. I'll tell you what. No, here's what we're going to do. Serious Mind. Now, this is Joe. Joe, if I give you a link, would you want to just come on in on a link? Let me know if you'd come in on a link, and I'll send you a link. So, Joe Serious Mind, who's been doing did a couple of overtimes with us, and I just love having him on. He really knows what he's talking about, and it's great to have a discussion with overtime. So why don't you, yeah, right now I have the phone line going through Skype. That was just easier than connecting my phone to the computer. So I have to have a phone line that comes into the computer and then can put it into the stream. And I'm doing that right now through Skype. So if you call, and we do actually have a caller coming in. Oh, dear Lord, I know who this is. Okay. I'm starting to think this was a bad idea. All right, let's see what happened. Let me see if I can bring him in. And, oh, there you go. Oh, the number I listed was incorrect. Hi, hello?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, you son of a... Oh, dear Lord.
The number in Discord is wrong. The first one where it says whatever the 6, 7, or whatever the first three numbers are, 2 in time. If you actually spell it out on your keyboard, it's correct, and it's not the same number as what you put right afterwards.
Oh, dear Lord. Okay. Okay. Well, of course I screwed that up. Everyone, this is a Xander in person, the guy who I was saying all of these nice things about, and only because he was watching. If he wasn't watching, I'd have told you my real opinion of him.
Yeah, it's. You only said those good things because I know where you live now, and you're worried I might show up and
You do know where? Yeah, exactly.
dump all the trash
exactly.
out of the
So
front of my
that was-
truck and into your yard.
Park your truck right out front. So, all right. Well, good. I'm glad somebody called and we could at least test this thing. My hope is they can hear you. Although I do notice I have a mute button right here, which I didn't realize I was going to get. So that's good. Yeah, maybe I should edit that phone number too. Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
I'm saying the wrong phone number. So it's 7692 in time, but I think I got the So yeah, okay. All right. Well, how you doing?
Oh, I'm okay. I'm out in North Dakota now.
Oh, really?
Yep, came through, got loaded in Elmira, New York. Have like 300 million stops delivering fire hydrants. Keep wondering why the dogs are chasing me, and then I go, oh yeah.
All right. Okay. Let me just. Ooh, you're right. It is. The number is wrong. Dear Lord. Okay. I'm going to fix that in the Discord right now.
Would I shit you? You're my favorite turd.
Thank you, dear Lord. You probably can't even see because you're on the
My
phone.
favorite my favorite libtard. That's what it is.
Libtard. Oh, okay. Okay. There you go. Yeah. Okay. That's, okay. I'll drop in the lounge the correct number, and then I'll update. Just because that other number. Oh yeah, I had that ending in a. All right. Well, there you go. Well, hey, listen. I mean, considering we haven't done this in over a year. This is our first time in a year doing this number. So, and then Maynard Save says no answer. So the number was incorrect. I was off by a digit here. So actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to drop that in the live chat. Let me just quickly get to. I'm going to quickly go into the live chat. So how you
when
doing?
I click on the number.
Yeah, I'm sorry. You what?
I'm doing okay. Oh, I went in there because I remember seeing it a little bit earlier. And I just click on the number, and Verizon would tell me the number can't be completed as dialed. So I actually spelled it out to make sure that everything was right, and it ended up a different number. So that one worked.
Okay, so we spelled it wrong. All right. And that's not the. So let me just.
Well, I mean, if you spell it out on your keypad, it works, but you're off by one digit on the printed number, and since my phone won't dial, the 888, hot sex. When you push that, it's actually got to have the numbers. So I tried pushing the numbers first because it just brings up.
Okay, I don't want to know how you figured that.
I've called you before, so I've called you before. I know exactly what your number is.
Yeah. Ouch. Okay, there's the number. I dropped it in the live chat. That's the. And serious, if you wanna call Joe and you wanna just call in, you can call that number or I'm just a little hesitant. I mean, at some point we'll test what happens if somebody Skypes into the show. So I'd like to donate, but I can't find the money slot in my laptop. Oh, a bunch of kidders around here. A bunch of kidders. Oh, so
kidding. My phone's got a cool little thing that plugs in the bottom, and you can slide your card right through it.
Yeah, exactly. Why don't you get one of those? All right, so
I guess only professional porn tube account holders have those.
Yeah. Like I always say this, which is I used to do that. Actually, I used to do like all the Pornhub live casting, and I found out they'd give me more money for keeping my clothes on. So I was just like, okay, sure. You want to see me put my clothes on? All right. All right.
Yeah, my tablet came with that cool little thing because it came with the whole business package for it.
Oh yeah.
I just wanted the software for my trucking business, but it came free with the little credit card slider, so I ended up with one.
Yeah,
Works better than my butt cheek, so
I'm making Joe find.
I actually get money.
I'm sorry,
with
Joe.
That.
We'll next time we'll have it set up so that we can also just like I said, I haven't tested. I don't know what happens. I mean, I should be able to merge the calls, but this is coming in on Skype. I was going to hook my phone up right to my computer, get it done that way. I was just like, okay, No frills, no thrills. So let's just do it the way I know how, which is through Skype. So, but I don't know what happens now if somebody connects to the show through Skype. That's usually how Joe comes in. So our guests usually, just Skype. We have a permanent, live Skype thing. You hit us on Skype, and we can just bring you into the show at any time. So that's usually how people come in. All right, so we've got
Somebody
here,
should try calling in on Skype and say you can try it.
I'm tempted, and I don't want to. So let's bring. We've got Maynard waiting here, so we're going to bring Maynard in, and once he comes in, we'll chat with him a little bit, and then we'll test it. I just don't want to boot everybody when. I don't know what happens. I can always remake the connection, but let's bring Maynard in. This shouldn't drop you, as Andrew. We'll see. Haven't tried this before, so hopefully this is going to be everybody. Let's see what happens. All right, so Maynard should be in the call. Maynard,
Good evening, people.
How are you?
Good. Can you hear me, Nick?
Yes, sir, I can.
Fantastic. I called for a specific reason. I had sent you a little monetary thing earlier, but my biggest thing about some of the YECs just happens to be the pre-fall of man, that there was no debt. I wonder, how do they deal with what's the mechanism for carnivorous plants pre-fall of man? And how do these animals know that it was okay once Eve ate the fruit? How did the animals know that it was okay to start eating other animals? What mechanism was used by God by them? But I've never heard that from a YEC.
I actually know the answer to that.
I was going to make a guess, but if Zandering knows, I would love to hear Zandering's take on that.
Yeah, well, I've heard several people talk about it that propose the young Earth. That the no death was to sentient creatures, so mankind wasn't allowed to die, but that didn't apply to plants and animals.
Yeah, but
but that's not what Kent Hovind adhered to.
Yeah, but even the young Earth creationists don't like Kent Hovind, so.
Well, I would assume it would be something like this, that in the Garden of Eden, that was completely true. However, even after the fall of man, if they had stayed in the Garden of Eden, then that'd have been okay, but they were expelled from the Garden of Eden, and outside the Garden of Eden, those were not the rules. So the plants, the animals, nothing had to learn any new set of rules, because there was an area outside of the garden that did not have this protection. So once man was expelled, it's not that.
So there were two sets of rules.
That would strike me as the argument that would be made. Yes.
Where is that biblically?
I don't think that's anywhere biblically, but I think.
Okay, so that would be ad hom then.
Well, not ad hom, but ad hoc. Yeah, I think that would. I think what they would argue is in the same way that they argue and say, well, listen, there are lots of things. Jesus doesn't go down and give an exhaustive list of what you can't do, right? Jesus doesn't sit there and say, you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do this. He just sort of gives sort of basics of rules and so on and so forth. All of the descriptions of what the universe was like was really limited to the Garden of Eden. And it was clear that the Garden of Eden was a paradise. And so you can assume that when he's talking about, all of these rules, he's only talking about the Garden of Eden. And this does not mean that the outside of that is either the same or different. It doesn't say anything. But once they get expelled from the Garden of Eden...
I don't think that, Nick.
I don't think that... Well, you don't... Well, wait a minute. You don't think that that's the case, so you don't think that that's what they would argue?
No, I don't think that's what they would argue, because Kent Hovind, he loves to present it as literal. And he doesn't like to take a lot of ad hoc, or he doesn't, he likes to take his 24 hours and 24 hours and whatnot, even though they're only described in 12-hour days in Genesis. But anyways, that's not my point, but when he takes it on, he's gotten, if you go back and watch the debate that he had with, he's the old He's on the opposite side of Kenny. He's an old Earth creationist. I can't think of his name right now, but he's I believe he's a physicist.
A physicist, theist, old Earth creationist,
Yeah, he's debated. He's debated Ken Ham and Ken Hovind, and his name's right slipping off my tongue at the moment. But when they had their debate, Ken Hovind said that you need to take a literal interpretation of it. There was no death pre-fall of man.
Mm.
So what did the sharks? What did the fish? Like how much kelp would a megalodon have to intake to uptake that protein that he would need to survive? And what would be the mechanism that they would need to change their dietary habits into protein after that? And how would they know that he even ate the apple, and it would be okay to even go into that?
I have no idea. I think
is my question.
That never crossed my mind. I wish that had. That's a really good. That's an interesting observation, and I don't have an answer for that. Like I said, I can theorize based on a few other conversations I've had with other people. I could call Ken Hovind, but I'm probably not going to do that. But I'm sure there are ways.
Well, I've asked him that in an MDD. I super chatted that to him in an MDD debate that he had, and he chose to walk around it, and he didn't want to answer. I asked him how much kelp would a megalodon have to consume? How much vegetation would a shark have to consume to keep up his needs?
Any number of animals.
Right,
and they're approximately the same mass. So I would imagine that about the same amount that a blue whale would eat, but I don't believe that the Bible mentions anything about it. So I don't know how anybody who takes a perfectly literal view of the Bible would be able to answer that. All they could say is, well, God did whatever God did, and that would be the end of it. He didn't deign to tell us.
Well, that's my point. That's my point. They don't have a mechanism. They have to assert a God of the gaps for it. My same question is for a carnivorous plant. Was it not carnivorous pre-fall? Did the Venus flytrap not trap flies pre Eve eating the apple?
All right, hold on one sec, because I'm trying to get Joe in here, and I just realized I can. Yeah, there he is. Hopefully, this isn't going to boot anybody out.
Here we have a plant killing animals. Is that pre-fall? Is that after fall? What mechanism in plants changed pre-fall to be able to adapt to killing?
That's okay. So just FYI for everybody who knows, Joe, Serious Mind, has joined us. So rather than, I realize, hey, if he calls into the show, I have a problem because I don't know that I can merge the calls, but I can call him. So without any warning, and hopefully he's not in his underwear. But Joe, how are you?
Well,
how would you know if he's in his underwear or not?
Well, fortunately, the camera was
I'm not going to stand up.
We were lucky. Yeah, don't stand. Oh, Jesus. Yeah. Oh, tell me about it. So we had a good question, Joe. I don't know if you heard it, but Maynard was pointing out, and I don't have an answer to this, and I guess he super chatted Hovind asking this, which was, and Oz has finally showed up. Oh, dear Lord, this used to be a respectable stream. And so the question that he super chatted was, and you know what? I could probably get you into the show. So let me work on that while we finish with the question, which is, okay, if you have a literal interpretation of the Bible, the question is, what were the either omnivores or carnivores eating before when there was no death in before the fall of man? So, for young Earth creationists and biblical literalists, that seems to be a problem, and I would concur that strikes me as an issue. I've never thought of it, but I think that's an issue. So that's what we were discussing when we came in.
And the problem is, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. They never answer that question, nor do they try, because they don't really have a good answer. I mean, they're going to say that sharks are with their razor teeth are munching down kelp. it just doesn't, have any weight. I mean, they just try to avoid it because they don't have a good answer. So it's.
Thank you. That's my point. The teeth, the biology to it doesn't fucking add up.
No, it doesn't. I mean,
well, the biology doesn't add up in the Bible at all, ever.
No, but I mean,
but this is something I like to think outside the box, and a lot of people like to attack different things straight on, and it's like, okay, so if they say that no death was pre-fall, let's think about this outside the box. Let's think of everywhere that things have happened.
Right.
Let's think of everything that's going on. They think Megalodon lived with man, so if he existed at the same time as man 4,000 years ago, the fuck was he eating pre-fall?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, the thing is that, I mean, sure, carnivores do eat grasses on occasion, but, it's usually because they have some sort of digestion problem, and they can't eat that much of it, and they can't really chew it. If they don't really get any nutrition out of it, really, it's really more for...
is that sustainable?
It's not sustainable. It's really, like I said, it's really for the cellulose to kind of like sweep through their system, but they can't because they do not.
My point exactly.
You need flat teeth to break down the cell walls so that you can actually get the nutrition out. And in fact, this isn't even a big problem even for humans because.
Why do we find no megalodon with flat teeth? Why do we not find like megalodon flat teeth in the ocean?
Well,
they're all pointed. They're all three-sided.
Well, right, and as I was saying, it's a problem even for humans because, a few years back, the raw diet became really popular, but they were finding that they were losing weight, and the reason why, because they were literally starving to death because, in order to eat enough, cellulose mass to get the nutrition out of it, you have to eat like 10 pounds of vegetables a day if you're not cooking them. Cooking actually, even though it destroys some of the nutrients, it actually releases some. And this is the reason why ruminants, most of them have multiple stomachs. They don't have just one stomach. It takes a lot of processing in order to get any nutrition out of any of this stuff. And
my point exactly.
Horses have such a difficult time with their digestion.
Exactly, and that's why.
So what about plants? What about plants pre-fall?
Well, and one thing, and some ruminants actually swallow stones to help break up the matter because even with all their flat teeth, it's still not good enough. Oh, plants?
What about carnivorous plants? Pre-fall. What was the mechanism used to go from a plant that used photosynthesis to a plant that now digests meat?
Let me interrupt real quick.
There isn't one.
Joe, just so you're aware, you're now live. We got your camera up. You may or may not be able to see it, but I wanted to let you know. So you're not surprised there. So yeah, I think staying seated might be a good idea. If my suspicions about the current status of what's going on with the Joe seat there, so let's just stay seated. Just saying. All right. So the
thanks, Nick.
The carnivorous plants, yes.
Yeah, carnivorous plants pre-fall. It's interesting to me.
Well, if there's no death, they can't. They either can't exist, or there had to be some serious change in the rules, which also begs the question, which is why were they constructed that way? Why if God, again, unless of course now God knows everything, so then He knows, but then again you've just knocked out free will again. You've taken free will off the table.
I'm picturing a Venus flytrap like ambushing a dandelion or some shit.
That's funny.
And again, there's not enough nutrition in a dandelion to satisfy, for the protein to satisfy a Venus flytrap.
You're going to crush my image of Katniss Everdeen living off of the dandelions in the spring and feeding her whole family that. You're just crushing me here.
The bees do, but we can't. So,
right.
Thanks, Nick. You guys have a great night. I wanted to ask those questions. I'm really, I really like somebody to bring them up to Hovind sometime.
I think that's one that I think would be worth somebody just sitting him down and locking on to with him and not letting him go from it and see what shakes loose. That was a good one. So thank you very much thank you for your support and thank you for bringing in that question. So thank you for coming on in.
Yeah, I'd love to see him twisting in the wind.
Thanks a lot, guys. You guys have a great night.
Take care.
Thanks, you too.
Yeah, I'd love to see Hovind twist in the wind and trying to come up with some, apologetic. And the thing is, I know that they've been, in general, I don't know about him personally, but they've been asked this question before. They just never have a good answer. They just say, oh, well, it's basically, it's magic,
Well, they're very good at derailing.
Yeah, the answer I always heard about.
Please.
Yes.
The answer I've always heard them give about, things dying before the fall was that they were talking about humans specifically, and they didn't talk about the rest of the world. The rest of the world worked just the way that it did, much like you're saying in the Garden of Eden, but that the Bible dealt specifically with humanity, and so these were things that applied to humans alone and not the rest of the world.
Which
that
makes
humans
sense,
didn't die before the fall.
What he would argue was, I think in the Bible, I forget the passage, but I think it was that there was no death. So, I mean, if you're going to be absolutely literalist, then there was no death for anything, ostensibly. But
Oh yeah, I would agree with that, and I don't buy pretty much anything written in the Bible at all. I mean, anything that's actually testable has been proven false. So. Which doesn't necessarily mean the rest of the Bible is incorrect, but I'm not going to put a whole bunch of faith into a document that contains so many errors on everything we can actually test.
Yeah, I mean, the funny thing about when they go out on the limb and say it's 100% literal is when you find it takes very little to find, even small errors that would make it not literal, and then they go, oh, we have to interpret. I'm like, well, the instant you say that, you're not literal anymore. You don't have to interpret literal. Literal is it says X. X is blue. So that means it's blue. So just like my favorite one is it refers to bats as birds, and we know bats are not birds. So if you have to interpret that line to make it right, then it's not literal. So it's such a high standard that it takes it's a very low bar to refute it.
Which is why I think so few people are.
Well, everything that we know from.
There's. I think there is.
I keep watching your face on the.
There's lag, especially on that connection. So, but please finish, Xander.
I can't remember. When the Bible contains a story like Noah's flood, and we have just about every single science that we have disproves even the possibility of a global flood. I mean, why would you put any faith in the Old Testament at all?
Right. Well, my favorite answer to the question is always, first off, where the hell all the water come from? And then if it did, where the hell did it go?
Well, he says it from the center of the earth.
The water came from the firmament.
Right.
They opened the firmament, and the water fell down. And I don't know how they drained it. They must have pulled the plug in the bottom of the Marianas Trench.
Well, it basically says something like it drained basically into the earth. But we know now that that's not possible.
Oh, sure. That's why I said it. Just every single scientific discipline we have disproves even the possibility of a global flood. I mean, we certainly know, as confidently as we can ever possibly say we know anything, that there was never a global flood, since there were, terrestrial animals.
Right.
Maybe there was a global flood of magma when the earth was forming, but, since we had solid land, and no, it's not possible.
I only caught about half of Godless Engineers debate with him, but I do know that came up pretty significantly in Godless Engineers debate, and I do remember he gave an answer to that. And I think the answer was that the waters went back into the earth. He had done the same thing with me, where he said, okay, I had said, look, if it rained that much, you're talking 7 inches of rain a minute, and not even a modern warship. We have never built a ship that can withstand, that can clear 7 inches of rain a minute. And he's just like, yeah, but you're assuming that all of that water was rain, and much of it actually came up from underneath. And I was just like, oh dear Lord, okay. I was like, this is why, yeah. So
yeah,
I know.
Yeah,
I
did the calculation a while back. It was it's about 61 inches an hour. But even there, I mean, I figured it out. That's literally the equivalent of every hurricane that happens in like a 3-year period happening like 10 times 10 every minute.
Yeah, it's huge.
It's just ridiculous. It's just this crazy amount of water. And the thing is that they kind of, I've heard a kind of a dodge on it, because they basically were saying, oh, well, it was only as high as, like a certain mountain. Well, that wouldn't cover the whole earth then, or the mountains were flatter back then. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? There's not 23,000 feet.
Well,
uplift
technically,
well, they are, but they're not. There wasn't 23,000 feet of uplift in the last 6,000 years.
Well, no, not in the last 6,000 years, but I mean, the mountains used to be pretty darn flat. I mean, we have plate tectonics.
Well,
we know how the mountains formed. They didn't used to be that big.
But the funny thing is, some of them even deny plate tectonics are real. So then, how do they account for high mountains? Then it's like, if you don't believe in plate tectonics, it means the mountains always have to be that high. In fact, if you deny,
God raised up the mountains.
Well, here's the thing, though. If
God raised up the water.
Well,
they lowered the water. He raised up the mountains. I mean, God can do anything.
Well, sure, but of course it doesn't say that anywhere that he did that. And the thing is if he raised them up beforehand, well, we know due to erosion, the mountains, if they're always high, then that means they would have to be higher than they are now, because erosion surely would have worn away a few feet worth, if nothing else.
Get him, Joe.
Oh, sure. That's why I said that every testable claim in the Bible has been proven to be wrong.
Oh, yeah.
Well, on a slightly different topic, have you guys heard about, so we've got a number of good shows coming up. Tomorrow is going to be, I've got Floyd FP is coming on to discuss Daniel. And he is an authority on that subject, and I think that's going to be a good show. We've got a couple of other good shows coming up. But we have, actually, no, it's a week from tonight. A week from tonight, I think it's set for 6 p.m., if I recall, assuming Mowdy can make it. Mowdy, myself, and 604, we're going to be hosting a simulcast. It's going to be on all our channels simultaneously, and it's going to be us shooting the shit on various topics. It's not going to be like we're trying to just keep it light and just a really nice hang. It's going to be kind of like one of Mowdy's, like our Good and All hangs. It's going to be a little bit more like Neil 604's Atheist. It's going to be an after show for us. So, but every one of us is going to be bringing a few people, and I wanted to invite the two of you guys on from In Time. If Joe, if Mowdy invites you from his stream, no, I invited you first. You're coming in on the In Time side. You're going to be here with us. If you can make it, we would love to have you guys.
When is this going to be?
6 p.m. a week from today. Assuming Mowdy guys, it's been like hurting cats trying to get Mowdy and Neil to just like when's a good time, but we finally got Neil on, and he was the harder one. So I think assuming the Oracle lets Mowdy do it, we'll be good. I am the first thing for the Oracle up there.
Friday should be okay.
Oh, perfect.
Friday 6 Eastern next Friday.
6 Eastern a week from today. Yes.
In fact, Fridays in general are good for me, because I try not to schedule on-site visits if I can avoid it, and Fridays are usually like meeting days with customers and crap like that. So, and I try to be home at a decent hour. I don't like to get home late on Fridays. So.
Okay, Aunt Jer hates simulcast, never know which one to be on. We haven't figured out the technical aspects of it, but if In Time hosts it, which is right now what it looks like is going to happen, I can get all the live chats into one. So that's a technical term. That's In Time. We coined that term. So we'll get that sorted out. So we can simulcast and merge all the chats so long as they're YouTube. So I'm since that's going to be produced ostensibly by In Time, I look forward to screwing that up. So I just gotta wonder why anybody lets me produce anything. All right, so Floyd is awesome. I'm looking forward to the Floyd show tomorrow night. So, is there anything else? Did anyone have any last minute things? We actually had a couple of great questions, so that was good. And the rest of the time was me just riffing on whatever stuff I did. I got thrown a little bit. So I don't know if you guys. I know as Andrew knows. I don't know if Cirrus knows, but we had a producer for the show. His name was Boole, and he did a spectacular job, and we really appreciated him. We did unfortunately have to sort of part ways, and a few months after parting ways, he passed away. And that was unfortunate, and I don't normally talk too much about it. And for one of the reasons is a lot of his close friends, I'm on the outs with for any number of reasons, and that's all fine and good. But there's no way for me to really sort of say that I really liked the guy and I cared about the guy without it starting to get. And it's probably sort of not my place anymore, because as much as I still did, he had moved on, and he was in a community where he was beloved, and a community that has certainly mourned his loss. So, but that was so somebody had brought that up, and I think that was a thought I had wanted to finish, which is I still do miss him, all other things notwithstanding. So, and
I have a question for you.
So he was hugely influential, by the way, and a huge cornerstone to this show's success. So yes, Andrew, what was the question?
Yeah, I knew Bull all the way back from the non sequitur days. It was very, very sad. My question is, how do you think that the overall Biden administration is doing? Not just compared to Trump, because a lot of things are better than Trump, and I don't think that's necessarily brings the bar up to whether you're doing a good job or not. Just saying you're doing, well, it's better than Trump. Yeah, but that can still be bad. How do you think that the administration is doing overall for the direction and health and well-being of the country as a whole?
I'll go ahead.
Please.
Well, you go ahead.
I'll answer, then we'll let Joe go in. But for those of you who don't know Joe, he's been sort of a guest host on Overtime a few times. Would like to get him back, because I think he does a spectacular job. I hope you guys agree with me, but I certainly enjoy. He's got a lot of insight, and he's a lot of fun to stream with. But I at first I was going to say I think he's doing a spectacular job, and then I realized inadvertently I'm making the same comparison. It's very hard to actually not compare him to his most immediate predecessor, and especially since we're in this huge hole. So you have to compare however high he gets. Now, you know, if he gets 3 inches off the ground, yeah, but if we're in a huge hole, if we're in a 6-foot hole, it looks like he's climbed 6 feet and 3 inches. So I will say, on one level, I think he's doing a spectacular job, but he only gets partial credit. And I'm gonna credit Obama, and the reason is, and Obama spoke about this, and Biden spoke about this as well, which is the Obama administration came up with a plan for what to do if something like COVID hit. They had a plan. It was practiced. It was in place. It was ready to go. And they knew what they were going to do, and they had practiced it. They said, okay, the call comes in. We think that there's something that's starting to spread. What are the next steps? They practiced this. Okay, it continues. And so they went through the whole thing. And now Biden is in there, and he's just like, okay, we're doing this plan. Now, you can't call this the Obama plan. He didn't come up with it, and Biden was a part of coming up with it too, because Biden was the VP at the time. But what he is doing is, Titan says my administration is better than Trump's. Titan breeds plants that are smarter than Trump. But at any rate, I think he's doing a very, very good job. I think in part that is because he prepped for this quite significantly, and there are a lot of people who are ready to get away from Trump. So he's getting more help than most administrations would. Coming out of the gate, even from Republicans, and in some cases less opposition, in some cases more. So we can't just sit there and it's no better or worse. I mean, there's a lot of factors at play. But so far, I think his handling of this, we now have over 50% of the population vaccinated. I think that's if you take kids out of the equation. If you have kids in the equation, if you take kids out of the equation, the number's even higher. And I think he's going to hit a wall there, but that is showing what we really could have done with a competent administration. So I think he's doing well. I think I can't say anything past he's doing well. And the reason is I think there are too many conflating factors, but I think he's doing well. I think he's getting a lot of help, and I'm reasonably optimistic. So Joe, what do you think?
Yeah, overall, I've been very happy. He's not, I hate having to use the qualifier, oh, it's not perfect, because no one's perfect. So I always got to get annoyed at that, because it's like, well, it's kind of goes without saying. But there are a few mistakes, here and there, little things, but overall good. I think, and part of the problem he's going to have is going to be hamstrung by the fact that even though the Democrats control the House and the Senate, at least in the Senate, they don't have a filibuster-proof majority, and because Joe Manchin seems to be unwilling to budge on kind of returning the filibuster to the way it used to be, where making because we don't have to get rid of the filibuster, just bring back the talking filibuster, and that would be good enough, because that someone can delay things for a day or two, but for someone's not going to stand there for a week and piss in a bottle and just keep talking for 7 days straight. It's not going to happen. So the way he was talking the other day, he was like, "Oh, well, I'm not going to do anything with the filibuster because it'll destroy this country." And I'm like, I'm very frustrated, and that is going to hold back a lot of the legislative agenda, because if we can't get the votes in the Senate, the agenda goes nowhere. But I'd say for what he's able to get done, given the circumstances, he's doing well. And the fact that, like, even on this commission, they got 6 Republicans to vote for it. Not enough but it's, for the cloture vote. But I think that that bodes well, especially since for all the talk of turmoil within the Republican Party, I thought a lot of that was overblown. But cracks are actually starting to form now, and I think in part because they've tried using the Biden's a radical scare tactic, and it just doesn't play. So all the real lefties, the actual neo-socialists and social democrats and democratic socialists are out there going, he's not one of us, and that's actually helping. So he's actually able to put forth a more liberal agenda than what anyone might have expected.
That reminds me, and I don't think I'm gonna. Well, I could pipe this in if you guys want to hear it. Actually, I could bring it in. It'll only take a minute. But what's his name? I'm looking for it now because I downloaded the clips. I can put this in here. But the he is Matt Gaetz. Is that how you pronounce it? Matt Gaetz, who has who said that Silicon Valley isn't going to be able to censor them. Silicon Valley is not going to be able to cancel them, and this is what the Second Amendment was for, and that they're going to be looking towards making sure that they exercise their Second Amendment, or I forget exactly how he put it. I could probably snag that up here.
So he's basically making threats that they're going to shoot the tech companies. I mean,
See that arguments like that piss me the hell off. It's like, no, the Second Amendment wasn't there for you to go after private corporations, to use the threat of force to force them to platform you, or to give you an avenue for your own voice. That annoys me.
Yeah, I remember when the right wing used to actually believe in actual free speech and used to believe in the free market, but now it's like, oh, the free market is going against us. What's really funny is, like, a year ago they were all saying, get woke, go broke, and now it's like all the companies are like, fuck you, we're going, the real money is over on the so-called woke side, and now the right wingers are freaking out. And quite frankly, I said this before in the chat, and I'll say it again, and this is something I posted on Facebook today. I don't give a fuck about the Second Amendment anymore as far as protecting and preserving it. I'm not saying to get rid of it, but I don't care about it. It's meaningless to me, because as a practical matter, I don't really have it. We've seen tons of times of police blowing away black dudes and black women, for that matter, because we might have a gun. Meanwhile, white Second Amendment advocates can go to Safeway, with their AR-15s, and nothing happens. So it's not a right because I don't have it, not really. So I don't give a fuck about it. So if it goes away or it gets neutered, I don't care. My Second Amendment rights are already neutered, so I don't care about it.
All right, let me hold on a second. I switched the screen, then it duped your audio. I'll get that taken care of in a second. So I did want to hear. Okay, so we've given our views, and I did bring up Getz, who I think is getting extraordinarily dangerous. So in terms, there's definitely a contingent that is doubling down and is talking about fighting back, and there will never be an anti-Trump Republican Party and all this. So Xandring, what are your views on the Biden administration?
I think that some of the wacky craziness it has definitely gone down, which I think is a good thing, at least from the rhetoric. Some of the more radical right side or farther right side I think, are shooting themselves in the foot. I mean, if they want to appear reasonable and the reasonable option, then they shouldn't be so bat-snot crazy about things, making claims like, this is why we have the Second Amendment, so you got tech companies can't lock us out. I mean, that's all you're going to do is push even somewhat moderate people away from your position.
Right.
I don't think that the media is treating the Biden administration the same as the Trump administration. I think the media was against the Trump administration and covered everything in the most negative light possible, and they're covering Biden's administration in the most positive light possible. I see a lot of the problems like the southern border, for example, where with Trump it was kids in cages, and when you have the exact same things going on, policy hasn't changed. Facilities that they were using under Trump are being used under Biden, and yet it's not suddenly a big problem. They've pushed back a little bit more on that now, which they should have. I would have liked to have seen the same kind of holding to the fire that they did on Trump to the Biden administration, because I think that's the only way that we can keep, politicians at least somewhat honest, at least accountable for what they're actually doing. And I don't see that under the media. I do think that there's quite a left bias there. I don't think that he's terrible. I'm not sure if he's going to be able to get to the place that he wants to get, but I'm kind of torn at this point. It's like I'm still fairly conservative when it comes to government and the role of government in the United States. I don't want the federal government doing a whole bunch of stuff. I don't want it to be easy to pass a bunch of legislation at the federal level. It's supposed to be difficult, and Congress really shouldn't be doing much. I think the states should be more empowered to take care of their own citizens. One size does not fit all of the United States. We have vast regions, and we need the people of the individual regions to come up with their own solutions for what works for them, instead of trying to shove down, just one size fits all. I don't like that approach. But I'm kind of divided now. It's like, well, I still kind of want that limited government, limited federal government, which it's growing, and it's growing exponentially at the moment. Or do I just say, well, screw it. You think you have all of the answers and you want to solve all of our problems? Go for it. Let's give you all of your legislation that you want to do, everything that you want to do, and let's see what happens. I think some of the things that have been proposed have been tried before and have failed, and I think that they will fail again. But
such as,
there's an argument going, no, this is going to work. This is going to work. Really, it will.
Such as,
and
example,
conservatives saying no, it won't.
Specific example.
Huge amounts of government spending throughout history. Governments that have done what the United States is trying to do have all failed.
That's not specific. That is a very broad statement. I'm asking for specifics. That's not spending money is not a plan. It's not a program or a plan. What specific things that we're spending money on do you think we've tried to spend money on before, and that those things have failed?
I would say much of this one's hard because there are people that are seriously hurting and need help, and I think that they should be helped. But at the federal government level, I'm not a fan of welfare spending at all. I think it's hugely inefficient. And the fact that we've spent, over $1 trillion, and the poverty rate hasn't really changed all that much. I mean, it was coming down, and it's kind of flatlined.
Well, I
It
think
it seems like a very inefficient use.
well, the global pandemic and pretty much most like half of production being put on hold for a year, I think has a bit to do with that part too. People being out of
Yeah,
work.
but even before, but I was also talking about, but even before the pandemic, it was still flatlined, and we'd still spent over $1 trillion before we ever had the pandemic. Now, the pandemic is an interesting topic that
On welfare.
yes, on welfare. Before the pandemic, we had spent over $1 trillion on welfare programs,
That's not accurate.
and we don't have a.
That's not even close to accurate. So.
Okay, what is the accurate number then? I could be mistaking it for billion.
Well,
I'm pretty sure I thought it was $1 trillion.
What are you lumping in as welfare?
All of the federal welfare programs.
Yeah, he's okay. So let's just as a couple of things. I don't want to stick on this too long because this is a bit more of a. I think this is an interesting conversation. This is certainly on brand for us, but this is a bit more. I want to start to get moving and start about wrapping this up in about 10 or 15 minutes. But I do want to say a couple of things. As much as it pains me to say this, Zandring certainly has on occasion misquoted numbers or misquoted people, but for the most part, he usually has a pretty good idea of what he's talking about. And trust me when I say that, I get a lump in my throat just trying to say that. But the other thing is he also has an extraordinarily liberal.
I'm pulling monies. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, he has a very liberal. Yeah, there's about an 8-second delay, I think, with you, just because of the way it's routing the call. Because Joe is in on Skype, you're bouncing from a phone call to Skype to here, so it's just you're having lag. But the other thing is, I think Zandring has the most liberal interpretation of what could be seen as a government welfare program that you can possibly imagine. And we did have 2 questions for him that I think would be worth giving to him, but I did want to let the two of you sort of finish off this exchange, and I think he was about to answer something about the money, so let's do that.
Okay.
Oh yeah, it's not like I had prepped to come in and discuss about specific spending of the government, other than I think they spend too much. Otherwise, I would have double checked numbers to ensure that I was accurate in everything that I said. So I'm pulling things out of my memory which could be faulty.
Okay, that's fine.
So, but the point I was trying to make is that a lot of the very left politicians believe they have the answer that'll fix America and make it. I hate to say make it great, but fix a lot of the problems. And I'm kind of torn. And it involves a lot more government intervention. Or at least their plans involve a lot more government usage. And I'm torn now. It's like I'm on one hand I want to go, okay, you think you have the answers that'll fix everything, because I care about fixing things. I mean, I care about people being able to live good lives. So I'm not heartless. I don't think the government is the entity that is best suited to do it, but you think it is. Let's try it.
Well, and
give it a go.
Let me just
let's see what happens.
Facilitate in one meaningful way, Xander, if I understand your positions correctly, what you said is close to accurate, but it's actually you're against the federal government doing it. Now, if a local government decided that what was best for its citizens was to give Social Security or so on and so forth, and that was decided by local governments, you'd be much more for that. You just don't like the idea of a federal government.
Correct.
There is actually much more nuance to your view. You don't object to government interference. Or to government involvement in our lives. You object to the involvement specifically of the federal government outside a very narrow interpretation of the U.S. Constitution. Is that roughly correct?
Correct. I think that the role of the federal government is to do those things that individual states can't, and the federal government does a whole bunch of things that the states could do. I would prefer to see like the way that taxes go would be reversed. We spend less on federal taxes and more on state taxes to enable the states to implement those programs that they think. There are going to be some issues with that too, because how do you pay for roads in freaking Montana or Wyoming when there aren't enough people there to really fund them, and you kind of sort of need the road. So there are some difficulties with that. And I'm willing to look at viable options to address those things, because in some cases the state may not be able to do some things, and the federal government may need to step in to do some things, like with infrastructure building. and I'm willing to have that discussion. And it's just my point of view is I want the federal government to do as little as possible. I'd rather the state governments do everything that they can, and then those things that they can't would then be delegated to the federal government.
Well,
but at this point, I have a lot of people telling me.
Here's a quick question: Where do you live? Just out of curiosity.
Okay. Technically, I live in my truck.
What state?
All over the country.
Oh, okay.
All over the country.
Yeah, so
if you're going to say where do I spend the most of my time, I live in my truck 90% of the time.
Okay. My
physical address is in Washington, Western Washington, north of Seattle.
The reason why I ask is because here's the thing that I found, and again, I want to get context of like where your attitudes come from, because obviously there is a certain amount of regionality to it as well. We know that certain.
Sure, I grew up in Wyoming.
Okay, all right. So that tells. Okay, that explains a lot. So, because here's the thing, because I find that obviously people who live in the less populous states, they tend to be more conservative, and the people who live in the more populous tend to be more liberal. It's not an object.
Absolutely.
That's generally.
I am very biased in the way that I was raised and where I was raised. Yes, I was raised in a very conservative area. Yes.
Okay. Yes. That's the thing. So
but I'm not opposed to
right. No,
liberals. I listen to citations needed. They're outright, I believe, communist or socialist. They're outright get rid of the free market. So I try and listen to a very wide swath of ideas.
Okay, so the reason why I ask is basically because I'm a pragmatist. I don't like. I'm a little bit like you in that I don't care where the idea comes from, left, right, or center. If it works, I'm all for it. So which is why I tend to be more, or I'll say, I don't know if I should say more conservative, but less liberal than a lot of my YouTube and Facebook friends. I'm definitely on the left to be sure, but I'm not. There's certain things that they say that I'm kind of like, no, that's not. That's not practical or whatever. But I find that those attitudes about that tend to come from again those so-called red states. But actually, when you look at it. If you look at the states with the worst economies, the bottom 22 economies in the country are red states. So, and they're the ones taking the most federal largesse. So that's why I get frustrated living in New Jersey, where we actually have the worst. We pay the most and get the least back on a per capita basis. And when I hear people who are literally living off of at least some of my tax money anyway, and then I'm like, well, you guys are saying the government shouldn't do this. Well, your states would fall into an abyss if we didn't do that. And at least you recognize that. At least there's a certain amount that at least you acknowledge that that's necessary. But it's a lot more.
That is absolutely true.
Yeah, and it's a lot more than a lot of conservatives would like to admit. Like, I had a friend of mine who was living in a red state, and he was complaining. He's like, "Oh, states should live in their means." And I'm like, "Dude, you should start with your state." His state was like getting $1.50 for every dollar in federal taxes they were contributing per capita. And I'm like, start. Look in the mirror. Mississippi is the most conservative state, and it's got the absolute worst economy. Alabama is the second most conservative state, and it's the second worst economy. And they get.
You can see this in Washington State. Just by itself, because Western Washington is very liberal, and Eastern Washington is pretty conservative. There's a couple of small bastions of more liberal thinking, and yet it's the counties of the conservative counties and the East country counties that take more in welfare dollars, state welfare dollars, than the Western ones do.
Right. So that's the thing I get on, because I feel like a lot of conservative people, they think their tax dollars are going to pay for welfare queens in the cities, when it's actually well-off liberals in the cities paying for poor people in the sticks, and so it's very hard to deal with that with that mindset, because it's like, well, no, you are the welfare state. You guys out in the sticks are the welfare state, and we're the ones propping you up, and you're mad at us.
Well, let me interrupt for 1 minute, because I tend to do I get off on that in terms of also because of the how much southern states tend to take in more than the federal for the federal government. Like, I lose in Massachusetts, we lose. I get back 70 cents on the dollar in federal funding. Texas gets back $1.30. But we've gotten a caller. I'm not even sure who this is, so let's figure out who this is. Somebody who's been waiting about 5 or 6 minutes already, so I want to let them in, but then I do want to sort of start to try to wrap this up. It's a good show. I don't want to wrap it up while things are going so good, but somebody has called in, so let's see what they have to say, and then maybe everyone gets sort of a final word, and then we'll wrap this thing up. So let's see. So we have a caller here, and hello, caller. Who is this? Hello. All right. Well, this is yeah. Well, there's a screening process and it failed, and it appears either they can't hear us or I'll leave them here for another minute. We'll see if we can hear them. So please continue. Let's try to wrap this up in another 3 or 4 minutes, and then we'll
Yeah, I guess the only thing I'd say, so I guess, way I look at it is I don't worry too much about like the whole or big government, small government. To me is what things can the federal government do more efficiently than the states, and they should do that. And then if anything the states can do more efficiently, the states should do. But I don't care about, I don't care whether it's coming out of one pocket or the other, as long as we're taking it out of the most efficient pocket for that specific thing. Again, like I said, I'm a pragmatist. And I do think though that standards need to be set by the federal government, because I don't think people in Nebraska need less health care or need lower standards for clean air and clean water than I do. I just think, if they've got a novel solution, I'm okay with them having a different solution to how to deal with it than we do here in New Jersey. But I reject the idea that your overall basic needs for survival are different in one, depending on where your geography is.
Correct. I would agree with you on that.
Well, I do. I think that's an interesting one. I think liberals are more eager and willing to say, for the sake of efficiency, let's do things a certain way and hand things that would be more efficient over to the federal government. They may be more efficient, but it may also have people that a conservative may be less willing to have fall through the cracks and take some power out of the states. That conservatives will say, yeah, it's more efficient, but that doesn't mean A, it's the right thing to do, or B, even constitutionally permissible. And I think that's sort of where some of this friction comes in, despite the fact both sides may well agree, yeah, it may be more efficient. That may also not be the point, at least to certain conservatives. Does that sound fair, as Andring, roughly, sort of?
Yes, I mean the federal government's doing a whole hell of a lot of things that it wasn't empowered to do by the Constitution. If you want the federal government to do with that, I mean, because I agree, there are some things that I have already admitted that things like, say, the infrastructure. There are certainly states out there that aren't going to be able to support a lot of things, and that you may need government to federal government to be able to step in and kind of equal things out. Because I agree that people in Nebraska should have the same quality of life as the people in New Jersey, and that they're not less important people.
Right.
But you should definitely amend the Constitution to allow the federal government to do those things, and we should have that debate, and we should have it out there and get everybody on record, and and if that is genuinely what we find that it's going to be a better use of the federal government to have them do X, Y, or Z, we have a mechanism to amend the Constitution to allow the federal government to do that. It's the same issue I have with a lot of the the gun laws that we have. It's like, I don't support gun laws because the Constitution specifically says shall not be infringed. And you can argue semantics over the wording of the Second Amendment. I think the ending of it's pretty clear, and if you read the writings of the founding, their intention is pretty clear what the Second Amendment was supposed to be. And we have lots of gun laws that I believe directly violate the Second Amendment. If you don't want, because I do believe there should be restrictions on what arms individuals can own. I don't want somebody down the street with a tactical nuclear warhead. I really don't. So yeah, I agree with limitations to the Second Amendment, and we should amend the Constitution. I think the damn Constitution should have been amended back in the early 1900s before they passed the first Firearms Act. They should have amended the Constitution instead, to limit the kinds of arms that individuals can have, especially once we started getting into World War I and even more so into World War II, when we started with chemical warfare, weapons that actually cause mass destruction. Those are things we don't want individuals to have control of. The Constitution should have been amended so that with the federal government would have the power to control things like that. And they didn't. They're throwing a whole bunch of laws against the wall, hoping that it gets through the courts, or that it doesn't get challenged, or that it can get squeaked through. And they're doing it, the wrong way. We have the mechanism to change the laws in the country, and we don't use it.
Hold on. I do want to have you answer, Sirius, but we've got the caller back, so I just want to let them in, and then we'll let Joe answer, and then we'll see where we stand. So I want to let this caller, because we lost him, and there definitely was a. All right. So who is this?
This is Kyle.
Kyle. What? Which Kyle? I can think of a couple.
Oh, this is my first time.
Oh, hi. How? Well, thank you. Thank you for calling.
Yeah, I thought this was about religion.
It usually is. It got off on politics. I'm certainly going to want to let Joe finish his thought. But was there a religious? We're going to let Joe finish his thought. But was there something on religion you wanted to ask a question about? And we'll start stewing on that as Joe finishes his thought.
I'll let Joe go.
Yeah. All I was going to say about guns, if you notice, a lot of the gun, at least the federal gun laws, a lot of them are really on the sale and manufacture of guns, not on ownership, because it may be more problematic constitutionally to pass a law that has anything to do with ownership, but if you have passed a law to say, look, you can't produce or sell these to the public, that's I don't see that that's a Second Amendment violation at all, because you're not telling someone they can't have it. You're just saying people can't sell it to them. This is different, which is different. I can have something that I have already, but you just can't make more and sell and give them out. So that's the difference. But and also real quick, I've looked it up. That whole $1 trillion thing that's been going around a long time. As of 2014, that the $1 trillion number was floating around. The actual number in 2014 was about 212. So I don't know what it is today, but I'll have to do some more digging up. But yeah, it was nowhere near. I knew it was nowhere near $1 trillion.
We should actually, the three of us, because we've had Isandring on before, and he gives very thoughtful answers to these kinds of things. So I think maybe the three of us could do a show and we could discuss any number of these. So Kyle, we it's a call-in show, and we ended up getting on to a gun debate in particular because Isandring is pro Second Amendment. I'm against it, and he and I did a debate actually on this channel. But we also have been discussing Hovind. We were discussing the Tinkerbell effect, any number of other sort of religious phenomenon. What have you got for us?
Yeah, I just want to know. I just started watching a lot of YouTube channels with talking about religion and agnosticism and atheism. A lot of you guys that I listen to, it's like, why do you guys spend so much time on God if you don't think he's there?
That is a fair question, and normally on most shows I would let the guests answer, but since this is a call-in, sort of my call-in show, I'll answer. And then I do want to get everyone else's answer, but I'll start the ball off with this one and say, for the most part, it's not a huge concern of mine, and I certainly don't care what other people believe, so long as those beliefs don't influence me. If they're trying to pass legislation that says who I can and cannot marry and or have sex with, or how, then I start to say, okay, this is something that I have to oppose. And even if it doesn't influence me per se, if we're going to have religious laws or laws based on any kind of religious belief, I think in general moral people have to oppose them, because those are being applied even to people who don't have those beliefs. Now, if you're Muslim and you want to wear a burqa, and if you really think that's important and that's a huge part of who you are, I'm not suggesting that anyone should be able to tell you that you can't, any more than you should be allowed to tell my wife that she has to. And it may seem, especially to Christians, because this is a predominantly Christian country, it may seem like there's not a lot of religious overtones to this country. But if you're an atheist and if you don't believe, you see religion everywhere, and it really is everywhere, aside from obviously on our money, aside from our schools, aside from my kids who have been told that they need to pray to God by their teachers who aren't allowed to say that. That's a violation of the law. but it's okay because it's Christianity, and well, who could have anything against Jesus? I've got nothing against Jesus. I've got absolutely nothing against Jesus. But I don't like the idea that my kids are going to be told what to believe, even by me. And I don't sit there and say they have to be an atheist. But for me, it's about freedom, and it's in part freedom of religion, which means freedom from religion if you want to have it. But if you are, and keep in mind, there was a Pew did a study not that long ago that said that atheists were trusted about as much as child rapists. And that's unfortunate. And in the U.S., that kind of makes sense, right? Because where do they get their morals from? But if you go to other countries where atheism is the norm, of which there are a number of first world industrialized countries that are that way, people are sitting there going, what kind of ass backwards person thinks that you cannot have morality if you're not Christian? But there's 7 states in this country that I cannot run for office because the Constitution of that state says that I have to believe in God. So I'm actually barred from holding office. And any one of these may not seem like a big idea, but you total them up. Yeah. Sorry, Joe. Yeah.
Yes. Sorry. Technically, those are not enforceable, but you would have to take them to court, which is you shouldn't have to do. But
I'm barred, and the state whatever the state election body is, I forget what it is, but would not be able to certify the state, and then I'd have to go and I'd have to drop $40,000 to try to become a state senator, or even the if I wanted to become a representative for the state of Texas, I would have to avow that I believe in God. So I would have to lie, and I thought we lived in a country where we didn't want people to lie. So. Yeah, I think it's because if you're Christian, you don't see how much Christianity we are steeped in. If you're not, you see it, and I don't mind it, except where it tells me what I can and can't do, and it tells my kids who they can and can't be, and who they can love. And it tells them that they're wrong if they decide that they love someone who's of the same sex or what. No, I don't. I'm sorry, and it's if you believe that, fine, but please keep that to yourself. And if you're not going to, you will find me in very strong opposition to you. And so that's my view. Cyrus, is Andrew? Oh yeah.
I'll go last.
I am a Christian, and I will say that I do agree. I'm not one of those old Bible thumpers that it's hell and brimfire, and burning and gnashing of teeth. I don't like that idea. But what I do like is it sounds like you want people to be peaceful and happy and kind to each other. Did I hear you right?
That's well, I do want that. I don't think that's enforceable. What I think is enforceable is people to respect other people's privacy and other people's own beliefs. So you don't have to be nice to me. It would be nice if you would, and I'll try to be nice to you. But you cannot try to impose your beliefs on me.
Yes, I don't want to do that, sir. And the reason I'm asking that is within the last few days, there's one specific show. I can't remember the name of it. And just today, I heard the atheist, and I've heard him do it several times now, where he'll have a caller on and he says bleep you and hangs up. He's not kind, and then he'll turn around and talk about humanism. And to me, that would be like pointing to the bad Christian. That would be like pointing to the to the Christians that the atheists probably say are crazy, but that's the same thing. So then what foot does he have to stand on?
I will say I don't agree with the tactics used by everybody, and we've had Matt Dillahunty on here to discuss debate, and we've discussed, and I do sometimes think he's a bit harsh and direct in his tactics, but I think he also does have reasons for it, and I think that's a whole discussion if we'd like to get into that. But to get into some who are more extreme, I have seen atheists and anti-theists who say that, and so let me expand my beliefs just one step further and then expand it to an extreme. I also think, for example, that science is the most successful endeavor in the human species has ever embarked upon. We've accomplished more in the last 400 years with science than the species has accomplished in the 100,000 years before that. So science is important and science works. And when religion conflicts with science, we have a tendency to religious people try to actually ban certain parts of what we know to be fact because it conflicts with what they believe. And I think that's a harm, too, that has to be opposed. But there are atheists and anti-theists who take this a step further and say that all irrational beliefs have to be opposed. And I know people who believe this, and they go after this. And I have two objections to that. First of all, we all have irrational beliefs, and we cannot oppose all of them. It cannot be done, and I just did a video on that with Hume's problem of induction. Even atheists must have irrational beliefs, period, end of discussion. It's not even negotiable. But that aside, what I object to is you imposing your will on me, but that has to cut both ways, which means I can't sit there and say, I have X, Y, and Z opinion of your beliefs, ergo, I need to stomp them out of existence in your head. No, that's what I don't want you doing to me. Who would I be to try to do that to you? And I've met plenty, most of them are on social media. You know, you meet them on Twitter who go around attacking and beating up theists, and they say it's a good idea. And I actually actively oppose them as well, because I think they undermine genuine good work of trying to separate church and state and trying to let each side have their own part of the sandbox. And that's what I'm for. And I love it when theists come out and I have one of my best friends is a Greek Orthodox minister, and we can say, and we can even talk religion, but because we're friends, it stays friendly. But you know, I love it when people get on the other side of the sandbox when they're invited and they can be friendly. But let's let everybody have that side. And I oppose one of yes.
Why do you and your panel not believe in a God, any God?
Oh dear Lord!
Because I've seen no compelling evidence to convince me that a God exists.
Yeah. In fact, I'll go a little further. I'd say that. Well, first off, you know, to answer your first question, the reason why my reasons are largely the same as Nick, as far as why, you know, why I spend so much time talking about it as much as I do, but I'll go a little bit different, slightly different step. I consider myself an anti-theist, but I don't do what stuff that Nick was talking about. There are people who, you know, use that they think being an anti-theist means you have to oppose individual theists, and I think that's ridiculous, because you know there are way more people in the world are theists than not. So I mean, it's kind of a fool's errand. But the thing is, for me, I feel that at least organized religion is more harmful than good. So that's another thing, and I do think, and I was going to use the example of, you know, as to why I get involved is like, well, if someone's constantly knocking you over, at some point you're going to say something about it, and that's how I kind of feel, you know, with religion, that what it does. But as far as why I don't believe, I used to be. Just to give you some context, I used to be a believer. It was a long, slow slide away. You know, first I got turned off by the religion I was part of because I started looking at the actions of the people who ran the damn thing and started seeing like, hey, they're teaching me these things and supposed moral lessons, and they don't live by any of them. So I started to think, okay. And so then I went to a point eventually where I felt like, well, maybe there's a God, but humans have just really screwed up our belief systems. But eventually, you know, I realized that there wasn't really any difference between the Abrahamic God I was taught to believe and any of the other gods that people used to believe in. You know, I shouldn't say no one. Very few people believe in the Norse gods anymore. Very few people believe in the Greek gods anymore, or the various pagan gods. It's for the same reason, is that there's as much evidence for Thor as there is for Jesus.
Yeah, I don't talk about religion all that much because I really don't care about religion. I've never been a believer. I've always, I guess, been an atheist. I've never been convinced that any proposed God, like the God of the Abrahamic God or the old gods, any of them, I see about as much evidence for all of them. And they certainly all can't be right, but they all can be wrong. And I've never believed in a God, and I don't talk about it very much when it comes to religion. You know, I believe all human beings have certain unalienable rights, and your rights end the moment they infringe upon somebody else's rights. I don't care if you want to believe in a God. It doesn't matter to me. If that makes you happy and that makes your life fulfilled, great. Then believe in whatever it is you'd like to believe. But you certainly don't.
No, that's not. Yeah, it's not you. It looked like. No, it looked like the. It says he's connected, but one of the windows just closed here, so it looked like I don't know if I lost them both.
Oh, gee, that's a shame. I mean, just to finish it up real fast until they come back. But yeah, I think that, and that's part of it. The thing I think that a lot of believers don't realize how much that they're constantly trampling on us. Plus the fact, I was thinking about something that Tracy Harris said years ago when somebody called into the Atheist Experience and was like, well, how come you don't have like theologians call in and all this? And they're like, first off, they can if they want to. And secondly, like there's hundreds of hours of religious programming every week, and no one's, calling up and saying, well, why are you guys talking about this Jesus all the time? So, it's just kind of a.
Oh, and there we go. Hold on.
We're calling Call-In Studios host and call screener line.
There we go.
Please enter your show number and.
All right. I think I may have accidentally lost Joe and trying to recover the other two. Now Joe's on hold. This is why I really just don't like Skype, because it's very difficult to. There we go. I think I got Joe back. Sorry, Joe. I accidentally put you on hold trying to recover them. So.
Oh.
Yeah, I think they're lost. I'm not going to be able to reconnect the.
Okay.
I'm not. With you connected, I don't think I can easily reconnect the call. So.
Okay.
What were you saying?
Where did you lose me? Where's the last thing you heard me say?
So it's going to take a second because I was trying to wait, personal freedom. Oh dear Lord, no, Xander, I'm sorry, I wasn't paying attention because I was trying to fix the call.
I think I started to say something when you were trying to get the call back. I just said that that I don't think believers really understand how much they do tend to try to trample us. Not a lot of them isn't on purpose, but it just happens because they're more numerous. And I was just reminded of somebody called into the Atheist Experience once years ago and got to Tracy Harris and said, well, why do you have all this show and why is everybody here and blah blah blah? And her answer was, well, you have hundreds of hours of religious programming a week, and you're asking us why we get together. And I said, we get together for the same reason that believers do, fellowship, and particularly if you did come out of religion and it was traumatic, a lot of times for people it's really a support system. I know when I first gave up belief, or I realized I gave up belief a lot earlier than I recognized that I had. But when I finally kind of admitted it to myself, it was scary at first. You grow up and you're taught all these thoughts of hell and brimstone and all this persecution and stuff like that, and you have to kind of get over that and realize, yeah, that's not gonna, especially when, for me, like I never really believed hell existed even when I was a believer. So it didn't take me long, but still, it's some of it's pretty traumatic. And so I know people who went through some really horrible things within their whatever religion they were in, particularly like Jehovah's Witnesses, Church of Christ, and a few of the others.
All right, well, so let me address just what happened. So I do apologize. That was I thought that was a great question by the caller, and in fact, we were going to bail probably about 20 or 30 minutes ago, and I thought it was worth sticking around longer. So, and I think Xandring was trying to give an answer, which I really liked. I really appreciate, Joe, your answer, so thank you. And I would have liked to have kept chatting with him a little bit. So what happens is there's a call center. We connect to that call center. They connect to that call center, and the call center just routes all the calls for us. Our connection to it was lost, and it appears to have just been lost on its own. And there's no easy way to reconnect it during the show. It takes a little effort to connect, and just the loss. So one thing I will do is I will in the future make sure that it gets connected on its own independent system. I maybe even also I could easily do it through my cell phone. I decided to do it through Skype because I that was how we did it last time, and I was trying to mimic the last successful one we did. So I'll set it up next time so that hopefully if that happens, we can call back and get things taken care of. But I do apologize to the caller. I apologize to Isandering, because we did lose both of them, and they were actually still connected to the call center, but they were not connected to the show anymore, and there was just no easy way to restore that. So I think that was a good answer to the question. I do think what we'll do is we'll start wrapping it up. I think next time I'll actually budget 2 hours for a call-in show, because I think this one turned out great, and I'd like to start doing this. We're going to do this at least once a month now, so we'll do that. And hopefully, next time we'll just have that connection, have a backup, so that if it fails, we're good. But in the meantime, Joe, where can people find you? What's going on? And just tell us a little bit more about yourself before we go.
Oh, well, yeah, a couple of places you can find me. My channel, Serious Mind. It's I'll just type in the chat. It's hi, so you can see the way it's spelled. It's SIRIUS, like the dog star, and MINED, as in mind, as in extracted from the earth, because I like plays on words, and it's like a triple entendre. So there, I'm also on the Breakfast Club stream, the one that Got That Funk runs every Saturday night, starting at 8 p.m. Eastern. He's actually going out of town for 4 weeks, so I'll actually be running that show myself. I'll be hosting it, I should say. I won't be in it alone, but and then I also am in occasional shows here with Nick, and also several of Chris Mowdy's broadcasts. I'm also very likely going to start making videos again. I was on Rational Warrior's channel. Like, again, I keep forgetting his new channel, but it's like Black Geeks or something like that. But I was on their hangout last Saturday, and he's been imploring me to make videos again, so I probably will. And I also may start my own stream as well. So you'll maybe seeing a lot more of me than you have, or maybe more than you want.
Well, if you want anyone to come in and screw up the production for you, let me know. I would be happy to help. So awesome. I will say I'm trying to get. We had the Penn Jillette introduce the show tonight, and that was cool. But I'm thinking of trying to get Sean Spicer to declare that any faults in the show is all Canada. And because that is actually our official policy, that's still on our Discord, which we'll drop a link to our Discord. You can come check it out. But it is one of the first posts in our Discord was that the order of succession of responsibility. And it turned out that guys with beards are like basically on the last on the list. I don't know how that happened. And any Canadians are top of the list. So Randolph, you screwed up the show tonight. We'll get on Randolph's case for screwing that up.
Blame Canada.
Yeah. Exactly. So we're going to do this. Is Chris Mouthy still around? Yes, he is. Where Marty should be. Marty may be on 2 shows. So Marty teaches college, and so he's a college professor. And when he's teaching, his schedule gets pretty locked up. And if we were doing more shows on weekends, we might be able to see him more. But right now, he's just been he's been swamped. We are hoping to get him on to 2 shows coming up, maybe even 3, because I think he really wants in on the Mr. Rogers show. But at a minimum, he's going to be on our simulcast, I think, with 604, and I think he's also going to be on when we have Anthony Magnavasco on for Street Epistemology. So he'll be joining me as a guest host for those. So.
I just want Chris to make the joke again about a fence around skepticism, because I love that joke. It never gets old for me.
You saw the clip of him getting his eyes blasted with vinegar?
No.
Oh, Jesus! I wonder if I can. I probably don't have it handy. I probably should. I'm gonna. Do a sound.
When you get time, just drop it in Skype.
In order to, they test all the equipment at the lab that he works at before they put it through innocent civilians. They test and put through themselves. They were doing one on can you sense when an eye gets assaulted, one versus the other? Can you actually tell the difference between? So one eyeball was getting vinegar, the other eyeball was getting water, and just sitting there going like, okay, this is gonna be good. God damn! And he flips out as the thing goes, and so we just slipstreamed that right into our intro.
Oh wow!
But it was pretty funny. So Marty's got a good sense of humor. At any rate, thank you all for joining us. And please, if you've made it this far, hit that like and subscribe button. It really does help us with the algorithm. Please also join us in the Discord. I will probably be down there in a little bit. I'm going to go check on my family, see how they're doing. This is about the time they all start going to bed. And, you know, I know you should be able to reach Joe on our Discord, and lots of these kinds of discussions and other ones. And you can also always become a patron of the show. This one maybe managed to not get demonetized, but we do get demonetized a good deal of the time. So that's also just one other way. But at any rate, thank you all very much for your support, for being in the live chat tonight. Joe, thank you so much for coming in. Hey,
thanks. Thank you for having me.
Is Andering? We are sorry, and I think he's actually connected, but since we can't reconnect to the call center, and I did is Andering? I did a little thing on that. I was just we weren't able to reconnect to the call center, so we lost that call. We'll get that sorted for next time. But is Andering, thank you very much for coming by. That was great, and hopefully you can come by, especially more often now that you can just call in instead of needing an internet connection. And to our anonymous caller with the question, I think that was a very good question. It was a valid question. I think it also certainly points out some of the things that I don't like about my fellow anti-theists in particular. So that's one I would have wanted to continue that one a bit more. But I think since we can't reconnect, and since it's getting a little late, we will call it a night. But you are always welcome. We'll be doing this at least once a month, and hopefully we'll get that question and or you coming by again. But until then, thank you all for joining us, and look forward to seeing you tomorrow, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, when we have on Floyd FP to discuss the Book of Daniel and the evidence for the fact that it is a fraud. Thank you all, and have a good night.